at Shea Sanjikinin Shle Selta Bethni Bushes Chin Tsenjikini Dash Shade Kabahan Dash Nale Shay Tode Yiside Nasha Queen the Salt River Indian Community Sugan Shalchin A Ta Megan Do Haley Do Shandin Dalia. Good day, everybody, no matter where you're at or where you're calling in from or checking out this book. I really want to share with you information about the importance of civic engagement. Throughout the year, there's many opportunities where we can come together and do things that really help to educate us about why we take part in something or why we give our time and talent and share with one another, no matter what age. And I think one of the most inspirational things for me is just looking at my grandparents, looking at a lot of grandparents who are elderly. So what I shared with you earlier was my clan, and I am a Navajo woman, a tribal citizen from the Navajo Nation, and I currently live in the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, which is in the fourth largest county in the United States. And coming from the Navajo Nation, which is the largest tribal Native American nation, it's really an honor to be able to sit here and share information with you. As a kid, I was really inspired by telling my story because of all of the people I came from. There's leaders in our state today that are very important. I think about the late Dr. Annie Winika, who is a Navajo woman. And if you can look her up, she's a great resource about protecting our health, but protecting our health was really rooted in her work, in her service to the communities across the nation. She saved many lives, and she was awarded by so many different people, including President John F. Kennedy. The other leader that is with us today, that is an amazing woman, is Dr. Luba DeHozy. Again, she talked a lot about health, and she's voted and she's registered so many people. Her family together collectively still are voter registers today. So they talk a lot about voting and issues that are really important here in Arizona. I think that women like them, they inspire me to do more. They inspire me, and I pass that on to my children, to Megan, Haley, and Shandine. And I share with them how important it is to register to vote. Both as Native American people, we have two different places where we can vote. We both vote in our tribal nations and then also in stateside and federal elections. So we have a lot of opportunities there to show who we are, why it's important to be involved. And I think that when we think about our history, we think often about the Navajo Code Talkers. The Navajo Code Talkers fought in World War II, and they used our language, the Nebizad, the people's language, to help protect our country and to help win this war that was needed, but more importantly, to protect our sovereignty and our lands that we lived on, and our way of life, I think, which is most important. And knowing all of this rich history is rooted here in Arizona among all of our 22 tribes and all of the people, it's really important to me. So spending this time with you today, reading this book about, a woman who comes from a very similar background, from very similar teachings, is rooted in a lot of the same rich culture and heritage, is an honor for me. It's an honor to be able to read about it and talk about it and share it with you. So here we go. Thank you so much.
She Debbie Nez Manuel yin shia Tsenjikini Shle Selta Bethni Bushes Chin Tsenjikini Dash Shade Kabahan Dash Nale. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you might be. I'm here today to read a book, one of my favorite books, about one of the favorite leaders I have. This book is written by US Congresswoman Sharice Davids and with Nancy Mays. Sharice's big voice. A Native kid becomes a congresswoman. This is a picture of me and my mom the night I was elected to Congress. When I see this, I think of how amazing it is I won. I think how amazing it is I even tried to win. When I was young, I never thought I'd be in Congress. And I never thought I'd be one of the first Native American women in Congress. During the race, I heard from a lot of doubters. They thought I couldn't win based on what I look like, who I love, and where I started. But here's the thing. Everyone's path has obstacles, some more than others. Everyone faces challenges and people who doubt them. Sometimes we even doubt ourselves. Everyone's path looks different. Let me tell you a little bit about mine. When I was young, I liked to talk a lot. I still do. I talk to my family, my friends' families. I talk to neighbors, people shopping in the store, people working in the store. I wanted to know things about people, like did they move often? Had they ever seen martial artist Bruce Lee kick through a wall? And did they also hate onions on their pizza? My mom likes to talk too. Watching her, I saw how good conversation can make people happy. You start as strangers, but then you share ideas and learn about each other. Maybe you learn they've moved 4 times, that they love Bruce Lee. And unlike me, they don't care if their pizza comes with onions. I still care a lot. Sometimes I got in trouble for talking too much. Okay, more than sometimes. My teacher even moved me by her desk, but that didn't stop me. Sharice, she finally said, move out to the hall to finish your work. You can't talk out there. But she was wrong. I just talked to whoever passed by. One day, a boy in class grew upset, so upset he bolted out of the classroom. Sharice, my teacher said, can you get him to come back? When I found him outside, I did what I always do. I started talking, then he started talking, and I listened. That was all my friend needed, and we went back to class. I was getting better at listening. I learned to listen gives people room to be themselves, to feel angry, sad, or happy. I discovered that the best way to learn about people is to listen to them. My friends at school were confused about me because I looked different from them. They always asked, what are you, Sharice? So one day I asked my mom, what am I? You're Native American, my mom said, after she told me that wasn't a nice question to ask people. We're members of the Ho-Chunk Nation, she said. I learned my mom was removed from her family and told to pretend she wasn't Ho-Chunk. Our nation is mostly in Wisconsin, where my aunts and cousins live. We're related to the Winnebago tribe in Nebraska. We used to be all one people, but long ago the US government forced tribes to move away from their homelands. I also learned we call ourselves people of the big voice, which obviously fits me well. My big voice came in handy every time I started a new school. My mom was in the Army for 20 years, so we moved back and forth between Germany, Kansas, and Missouri. At every school, I made friends by talking and listening. I knew a good conversation could break down walls, just like Bruce Lee. In Germany, a soldier taught me martial arts for free. I wanted to keep taking lessons when we returned home, but my mom couldn't afford them. So I watched Bruce Lee movies all the time. He could do roundhouse kicks, a palm strike, and a flying arm bar. I ran around the house punching and kicking, trying to copy him. While my mom was being strong and fierce at work, I was strong and fierce at home. When I was 13, I went to my mom's work for a special ceremony. She had earned a promotion to a higher level in the Army, Sergeant First Class. My mom asked me to pin the special sergeant patch on her uniform. I watched her stand at attention in her Army fatigues and an American flag behind her. I felt so proud. It took years for her to earn the promotion. I knew how hard she worked, and I knew I wanted to be like her when I grew up. Focused and fierce, confident and kind, a person who serves others. I learned how to work hard by watching my mom. I sold newspaper subscriptions and worked in a pizza restaurant. No onions on mine, please. Later, I paid for college by working in a fast food restaurant, making burgers, cleaning bathrooms, and calming upset customers. I learned you can always fix someone's complaint when you're out of mustard. You're out of mustard, but you can listen. And you can do something to make them feel better, like maybe free ice cream. In college, I used part of each paycheck for martial arts classes so I could finally learn to fight like Bruce Lee. Jiu-jitsu, taekwondo. I learned to land a punch and defend against a palm strike. But more importantly, I learned that when I worked hard at something, I got better at it, even if I couldn't see it right away. I trained every day for years. I finally was ready for my first martial arts fight. Yeah, I was nervous, but I knew I was prepared. Standing in the ring, I thought about my training, all those hours practicing, and then the bell rang. We met in the middle of the ring, and I pounced on my opponent. In less than a minute, I won my first fight, and with my favorite move, a triangle hold. The crowd cheered with one arm raised high. I realized it felt good to win, but it felt even better knowing I won because I'd worked so hard. You know how that feels, right? At the same time I was fighting in the ring, I started a journey with different kinds of battles. I decided to enroll in law school so I could work to make our U.S. laws more just and fair. I didn't know anyone who was both Native American and an attorney. I didn't even know any attorneys, but martial arts taught me not to be afraid of the new challenges. A friend told me about a program for Native Americans preparing to be lawyers, and I signed up. It was the first time in my life I'd sat in a classroom surrounded by Native people. It felt very powerful. No one in that room asked, "Sharice, what are you?" Once I had my law degree, I worked for a big law firm, but it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like my path. So I moved to a reservation in South Dakota. I saw that my Native friends there didn't have any kind of opportunity I had in Kansas. So I used my legal skills to help them start businesses. I learned a lot living there, and my life is better for it. Working with Native American tribes, I saw that the people who make up the Native American government don't always see how laws they make impact the people they represent. I wanted to change that, so I went to work in the White House. There I saw how laws were made, but I didn't see people who looked like family. I didn't see people who'd grown up like me. What if that changed? I wondered. What if everyone's voice was heard by the people making our laws? That's when I had a bold, brave idea that would need my big voice, my ability to listen, and my ability to take a punch. Turns out, a lot of punches. Can you guess what I'm talking about? I decided to run for US Congress. Our government needed different voices and more people who would listen. I had doubters, people who didn't think I could win or that I should even run. But do you think I listened to them? In the beginning, the campaign team was small enough to fit around a kitchen table. But as we walked through neighborhoods, more people joined us. Our campaign made room for everyone. We listened to everyone, people who couldn't afford to see a doctor, moms whose jobs didn't pay enough to give their kids more opportunities, every child who had ever been asked, "What are you?" In our campaign, we listened to every voice. The night of the election, I hoped we would win. I knew how hard everyone had worked on the campaign. I knew how important it was for their voices to be heard. I watched the election results on TV in a small room with my best friend, my family, my campaign team, and my partner. We laughed, talked, and ate macaroni and cheese. When the results came in, I'd won by a lot. I walked out of the small room into a ballroom and saw the smiling faces of all the people who helped on the campaign as they cheered and clapped. I climbed onto the stage with my mom and we lifted our arms. We did it. I felt like everyone, every voice was rising up with me. Growing up, I never would have guessed my path would lead to Congress. I didn't know I would be one of the first Native American women in Congress and the first lesbian representative from Kansas. Everyone's path is different, and wherever yours takes you, maybe the lessons I learned can help. Be open to challenges, work hard, and you'll learn a lot. Listen to people, but not the doubters. Use your big voice to fight for your beliefs, and always remember you deserve to be seen and heard. Thank you so much for joining me. I had the pleasure of meeting Sharice Davids just last night, and I was really glad to tell her that I was reading this storybook to all of you, and she sends her best regards. She's excited for every kid in Arizona and hopes that she inspires you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you in a very big way.